Hi, I'm Adil and I'm the moderator.
I'm Kaitlyn.
I'm Max.
I'm Nick.
And today we're talking about the releasing of the Epstein files. It has gained significantly more traction since the 2025 presidential election when Donald Trump promised to release the files. Since Trump and General Attorney Bondi have promised transparency with their presidency and have begun to open releasing them, and have done little to follow through since. Only parts have been released and lots of speculation has been occurring about the names included in the list. Another question is, why are the FBI and Department of Justice refusing to release the files? So, generally, guys, how do you feel about the release of the Epstein files?
I think they should be released.
Personally, yeah, I think it's a massive topic of discussion right now, and I think we need to really get to the bottom of it.
Yeah, I think that learning more about it is important, although the release of it could have sort of the opposite effect that people are expecting for in that instead of calming kind of minds, it produces more speculation and more like conspiracy, which would be the opposite effect.
How would it brew more speculation and conspiracy?
I think that people like storylines of famous and rich people, like scandals. Like a lot of people enjoy scandals and enjoy like seeing that happens. And when names get put out, instead of calming the crowd and saying, okay, there's no more things hidden, like it might uncover only parts of names and okay, well maybe this person really was connected and we weren't aware of that first. And I think that could create conspiracies.
I get what you mean, and I definitely think that just because someone's name in here doesn't make them a criminal or criminally involved. But I think that like a lot of these government officials, especially our president and stuff, these are the people that we're supposed to trust and like they're running our country, and we should know if they're kind of in associates with a child sex trafficker. I feel like that's what a lot of people want to know about. So I feel like that's the main reason why people want them released, as well as like victims probably want justice, but I don't know that much about that part.
I guess we'll truly never know all the information. Even if the Epstein files do get released, there's a chance that they could possibly be faked by an administration.
Yeah,
we'll never
true,
truly know.
that's true.
And you guys are talking about celebrities here, like kind of, what do you guys think there is an actual client list that has these individuals in it?
I think that it existed at one point. There's definitely no way to tell if it is, at the top of the kind of thing that would be released. I think that there definitely probably was some kind of it, in a business situation, in any kind of business situation that you keep records, and I'm sure that there was something, but I don't think it's as simple as this list that has everybody on it and this file that has everybody on it.
Yeah, I agree. I think that like it's hard to say that if it exists or not, because even from like government officials there are like contradictory statements regarding it, of like Pam Bondi, the Trump's general attorney, she said like, oh, they're in a Fox News interview, she was like, oh, the list is on my desk right now, like I need to review it. And then later she said like that was misconstrued and that's not what she meant. But I think overall it's hard to say until like we actually get to see them.
It's really hard to tell lie from truth at this moment.
Yeah, I do agree with that. I think that because you can't tell lie from truth, sometimes that obviously creates distrust and in the government where your goal is, trust because they're running the country, it's kind of hard to accept the fact that everything they're saying probably isn't true, although there could be reasons, and I think that it's not ridiculous to assume that some of the reasons that they're lying about it is because it might create a really bad situation if they were released.
And you guys kind of mentioned, files inside of this whole thing. What kind of documents do you guys think is in these Epstein files?
So there's definitely, like the birthday book that was actually released recently, a redacted version, has a lot of letters between, there's like famous people in there and Epstein and stuff, or to Epstein. That's one of the main things.
And yeah, I definitely think there's like you know, photographs and stuff. I think that, you know, the birthday book, it's evidence, but it's so like minuscule because of the.
It doesn't incriminate them necessarily.
Yeah.
I think we really need to hear about the flight logs because so many people of interest, so many celebrities. I mean, it's really insane once you look at it. People you may think were completely innocent in all this definitely had some part. I mean, comedians that we all love, politicians, government. It's truly wild.
And they definitely still could be, but it definitely like kind of puts doubt in your mind, I guess, maybe.
And, you know, all these people on the flight list, you know, kind of, do we think that they are guilty of something? You know, there's all these individuals of, you know, that are taking photos, Epstein with very affluent individuals in society. Do we think these people are guilty of doing things on the island?
No, I don't think so.
I think that if you're on the island, it's going to be hard to avoid what's going on there. But I think just, like, the main question is, have they flown just on Epstein's private jet, like, to another location, or was it to the island? Like,
Yeah, it's definitely true by saying, like, it's hard to avoid that, but also, I think people who are not millionaires and billionaires have a hard time understanding what a party of billionaires would be like. And from what I understand, a lot of that seems to just be a bunch of people with a bunch of money in an expensive mansion or whatever, and in this case an island. And I don't think that being there necessarily means that they're guilty of something, but I think it just means that they're at a billionaire's party, and you find a lot of people that you would never, like, people who have never met go to those parties all the time.
And I mean, it's commonly said that Epstein, you know, introduced these people to a lot of like entertainment. Do you think these billionaires were paying Epstein to give them a sort of entertainment you couldn't get anywhere else?
Yeah, I definitely think something was going on there. He was definitely some sort of laundering was going on with people, and it was absolutely disgusting.
Although that could be true, and it probably is true, I do think that a lot of people who are uneducated about this tend to blow that out of proportion and say that just everyone who knew him and everyone who was like acquainted with him, you know, they all were paying for it. And I think that it's important to educate people that like that's not necessarily true, and it was a little bit more secret than people assumed, than just anybody who was on the island like had access and was available to you know, be a part of the services.
Backtracking, you know, a bit back to the documents, we saw a lot of photos of Jeffrey Epstein with a lot of like popular people, especially Donald Trump, who is currently the United States president. Do we think Donald Trump was like had a big like part in all of this?
I think that it's hard to believe that he isn't involved in some like point, because in a CBS article, there was a quote from Jeffrey Epstein saying that he was Trump's closest friend for 10 years, and this is before he got arrested. So it's hard to believe that, like, being someone's closest friend and they didn't have any idea. And also, there was stated that there was a falling out, and Trump was, like, said he was not a fan of Jeffrey Epstein's because he was a creep, so he, like, kicked him out of the group, and I'm like, you knew he was a creep. And you kind of turned the other way, and whether he knew if he was a creep or not with kids is a different story, but either way, it's kind of like you looked the other way.
Do you think that birthday letter that Trump sent to Jeffrey Epstein also contributes to the fact that Trump might also be guilty even more?
That's hard to say, because there's speculation that Trump didn't actually write the letter, because a lot of people have analyzed his signature and said it's different from his typical signature. So it's actually not 100% proven that that's who signed it.
I disagree that it proves it. I think a lot of high profile and a lot of rich people, you know, have other people that write stuff for them. Like famous people, when you know, having weddings, like, you think they write all the thank you letters? Like, probably not. And so maybe there's a lot of stuff that go along with thank you or like birthday letters, where rich people, like, they're just like, oh yeah, my secretary will go write a birthday letter. So I don't think that is good enough evidence to like, and nothing concrete to show that.
Do you think, you mentioned like how other people write for them, do you think the person that was writing for Trump, maybe other people around Trump's circle were in the know-how about what was happening on Jeffrey Epstein's island?
No, I think that he might have been very secretive about it. I mean, it's very like wishy-washy on how open he wants to be about it due to the lying about it in his campaign and, you know, not going through with his promises. But I think that the people around Trump and like the people that work for him maybe don't. I mean, you can never know unless you've worked for him, probably, because you don't know how secretive of a person he is with the people that work for him, but maybe he just gives orders and people listen because he's rich, you know?
I feel like, though, with what you said about having someone else write the letter for him, that could be kind of flawed still, though, because the letter was in the outline of, like, a young woman's body. So, if you've seen the letter, you know what I mean. If you haven't, that's what is in the outline. But I feel like that's hard to be like, nothing weird was going on. So.
You mentioned his campaign. One of Trump's promises for his campaign was to release the Epstein files and the Epstein list. What do we think about that?
I think he possibly tried to. Obviously, people have been wanting to see that for years, and I think he used that as a plot to get elected. And now, as he is elected, he's been very suspicious around the topic, clearly trying to avoid it. And yeah.
I do agree with the fact that he's being very, like, kind of awkward and weird about it, and I think that it was, hey, elect me, I'll do this, and, like, now that he's elected, he doesn't have to anymore. But they're also, like, he could be withholding it for the same reason that the news are withholding it. Like, he doesn't have sole control over any case getting released, so why would him not wanting to release it, like, why couldn't another institution release it, another institution that knows something about it? Because clearly a lot of people think that other institutions know about it. So I think that whatever reason the government and like news places and a lot of other people that know about him haven't released it could be the same reason that Trump isn't.
So mentioning a lot of other people having this thing, you know, we have individuals like Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, you know, the FBI and the DOJ, who previously said, you know, we do have this file, are now retracting their statements saying there is no evidence, no actual document of this Epstein list. What does it say about our government officials?
I think it's pretty untrustworthy, and it sparks a lot of distrust within, like, even Trump's own, like, MAGA supporters. Like, they're becoming divided on the topic, which they're very loyal, so it's kind of it's shocking that this is, like, gonna wedge them. But I feel like Kash Patel, I believe he said, like, if I was like the head of the FBI or whatever, like, I would release them. And then now he's the head of the FBI and he's saying that he's not, like, they don't exist.
Talking about, like, you know, how Kash Patel said, you know, once I become the head of the FBI, you know, I'm going to release this. Now that, like, all these individuals were, you know, advocating for transparency before they were put in power, not that they are in power, they have all this wealth and power. Do you think, like, the public that is advocating for the release of these files, for transparency of our political individuals, do you think it will be able to overcome that power and wealth or not?
I think since the Epstein files is such a prominent thing in the media right now, I think it is a possibility that they could overcome that, but I could also seeing it still being redacted by rich people and celebrities alike.
That's definitely true. It's really, rich people are very good at hiding things. I think, though, that the case going on right now, it's so pushed by the public and it's so, like, rushed that everyone, like, people who want for the files to be released are really adamant that it gets done fast. And I think that people who promise to release them get pushed into positions of power very fast. And I believe that once they do figure out kind of what's going on and maybe the reason that no one else is releasing them, they kind of find out why, and they realize, oh, okay, yeah, I guess we probably shouldn't, because this is, for whatever reason, it's would be good for people to hear, it bad for protecting the identities of the victims, stuff like that.
Yeah, I feel like towards the idea of like, do you think they're gonna be released? I think that there's a lot of like work towards them being released, because like the House Oversight Committee has been kind of subpoenaing the other documents, and they're continuing to do so, and they're voting to do so with even more of them. So I think that that's progress, but I'm not sure if the entirety of them will ever be released.
Mentioning about, the privacy of the victims, how do we, persecute these individuals who, were a part of these assaults, while also ensuring that the victims stay safe?
That's the thing. I mean, obviously it's important that the victims of the sex trafficking ring get, justice for what happened to them. But the problem with that is that to do that, you would need to release the files, which I think just have too many negative impacts that it's kind of like at a stalemate. If you want to help out the victims, but you also have a lot of pushback for releasing it by possibly the people that are, that maybe were a part of it, the rich people that, took place in the, the horrible things that happened at that island. But I think that while it's important to protect the identities, it's just it's too much of a back and forth in good things versus bad things that could happen if they got released.
So you're like saying, is it essentially worth it for the victims to release it?
I mean, it's not anyone's place to say whether the victim should get justice or not. I mean, obviously that's the right thing to do, but possibly the people who took place with those victims, maybe they're trying very hard for them not to get released, and maybe that's why it's kind of at a stalemate.
Yeah.
Although, yes, the victims should get justice, and they should be, the justice that they probably deserve, but it's just too much of a stalemate. I think, like, it could unleash kind of a Pandora's box.
And, talking about the stalemate and the releasing, a lot of like news stations and individuals have been reporting on the Epstein files. How do we ensure that, information stays true to the source, and that, we do have journalists reporting what we need to know?
I think that it's the obvious of like making sure that they're following like journalist integrity and having like unbiased commentary, or not even commentary, just like information, and also making sure that like there's no personal speculation, because a lot of speculation can lead to conspiracies or misconstrued information, and also just making sure that what they're reporting on is exactly what is in the files. Not like this could mean that, but it's just like what they're saying is what's in the files.
I mean, that's the thing. I think that there are too many news stations to have an unbiased opinion. There just won't be an unbiased opinion, meaning that maybe the conspiracies that we have now, maybe that's the best it's going to get. Like, with, 10 different news stations reporting different opinions on the case could throw so many more conspiracies into it, with the release of names that no one had ever considered before. Like, I think that it could start a bunch of new conspiracies and be even worse than it is now.
Yeah, especially with like people who aren't actually gonna read the files, and they're just gonna get information from the news. They're just gonna believe what they read. And so if people aren't unbiased, or if the journalists aren't like unbiased, then there's gonna be like a whole like group of people that are just getting their information from like a biased source that they don't even realize.
In conclusion, I think that, the Epstein files is much bigger than it seems. A lot of key figures are, at fault here from what we can see. There's a lot of miscommunication, distrust for individuals, and it's kind of, opened our eyes to kind of how we were realizing that there is a lot of like problems and situations that, the general public did not know about until so much recently, with everything being released slowly, but in due time, eventually we will persecute the right people and ensure that the victims get their justice.
Disclaimer. Opinions were similar between the four of us. We all believe the files hold important information of victims, perpetrators, and the victims should have the opportunity to be at peace by finding justice by any or all legal means they find fit.